My overconsumption sensors are going off pretty majorly right now. And I have pretty good overconsumption sensors. No, honey, you're not collecting. You're just buying stuff. And you're calling it collecting because it makes you feel less guilty about it. Overconsuming hurts the planet. You cannot argue against that because it's a fact. And if you try to argue against a fact that is easily verifiable on Google, you start to look a little bit silly. Everyone who was buying Labubus last year, opening blind boxes and collecting them, how are those collections coming along? Are we still collecting? Are they still swinging off your bag every day? Or are we over it? Or maybe the real question is, were we ever really into it in the first place? Collecting versus overconsuming. The ultimate showdown. You guys have been requesting me to make a video about this for a while now, and I'm not gonna lie, I've kind of been putting it off because it's such a big topic to talk about and I knew I wanted to do it properly. But I've had enough thinking time, so let's talk about it. What is the difference between collecting and overconsuming? Where do you draw the line between those two things? How does collecting turn into overconsuming? Is overconsuming okay if it's in the name of collecting? Ugh, my brain hurts just thinking about it. So we're gonna break it down super easy, classic Rachel style. We're gonna look at some examples of collecting and overconsuming, and we're gonna figure it out together. Super quick intro, just in case you're new here today. Hi, I'm Rachel. I make videos all about crazy internet trends, and I talk about how influencers promoting overconsumption and excessive consumerism is kind of lame. I make these discussion videos to simply share my thoughts on stuff and to normalize being normal about things. I try to make these videos fun and informative, but also easy to understand and accessible. My videos are for everyone, whether you're a young person wanting to learn about these concepts for the first time, or if you're someone who is looking to explore some new angles and case studies on these topics that you're already familiar with. So, what is the difference between collecting and overconsuming? They look like completely different words, but by definition, they are actually very similar. A collection refers to the deliberate acquisition of a group of similar items, and the word deliberate is the key here. When we talk about collecting, most people think about things like stamp collecting or memorabilia, pop culture merchandise, figures, that kind of stuff. To me, collecting is where somebody purposefully and selectively acquires specific things because of an interest or passion. And then on the other hand, we have overconsumption. It's sort of like the evil cousin of collecting. By definition, overconsumption simply means consuming things excessively. In my eyes, overconsumption is still acquiring things, but without that careful consideration and cultivation you see in collecting. I think a lot of people forget that overconsuming means consuming excessively. I'm gonna go on a little bit of a rant here, so bear with me. Overconsumption is not just buying things you don't need. Otherwise, everything would be overconsumption. Outfits, accessories, room decor, jewelry, technology, none of these are necessary things to own. Most of the things that we buy and consume as human beings are not necessary, but that doesn't make it overconsumption. Overconsumption is consuming things excessively. You can sometimes even overconsume on necessary items. For example, Bodycare stuff. Is owning soap and shampoo necessary? Yes, to maintain proper hygiene. But is owning 100 bars of soap and 100 bottles of shampoo necessary? No, it's not. It's excessive. It's excessive consumption, aka overconsumption. This is one of the biggest misconceptions I see about overconsumption. Overconsumption is not just regular consumption. It is not just buying a few things that you don't need. It is excessive. And I get so many comments on my videos. I'm talking like multiple a day saying, I own 3 Needohs, but I got them because fidget toys help with my anxiety. Am I overconsuming? No. Owning 3 of something is not overconsumption. Owning 3 of something is not excessive. People will comment, I own 5 lip glosses. Is that overconsumption? No, it's not. Especially if all those lip glosses are all different. Each item has a purpose and will hopefully be getting used pretty regularly. These items like Needohs, lip glosses aren't necessary for us to survive as human beings, sure. But you can still buy these items without it being overconsumption. Like seriously, when I talk about overconsumption, I will get comments like, hey Rach, I bought a plushie today. Please don't hate me. Am I overconsuming?
Oh my god.
Buying things and owning possessions is not overconsumption unless it is done excessively. Overconsumption is usually pretty extreme, and because of that, it's normally pretty expensive. And it can often involve some sort of trend following or things like micro trends. For example, Stanley Cups, the mystery dumplings, Needohs, Labubus. Overconsumption is not just buying 1 or 2 things. That's like lighting a little candle and calling it a forest fire. Like sure, that flame can turn into a forest fire if it's not kept in check, but there is a big difference between regular consumption and overconsumption. You know, regular consumption is like lighting a few candles and enjoying watching them burn. That's fine. That's fun. Overconsuming is like lighting a fire outside that then gets out of control and becomes a forest fire and causes a ton of damage. That is the difference. And I feel like people wrongly using the word overconsumption to simply describe being a regular consumer is actually really damaging to people's understanding of why overconsumption is bad. Nobody will take the issue of overconsumption seriously if we are misusing this word. We've already started to see it a lot on social media. People saying overconsumption is just a TikTok buzzword that everyone just throws around without any real meaning, which is a real shame because it gives people an excuse to disregard actual conversations about genuine overconsumption. So now we know what overconsumption is and how it differs to regular consumption, let's get back to the collecting thing. So if overconsumption means excessively acquiring items, isn't that just the same as collecting? Kinda, yeah. Which is why it's so hard to know where to draw the line between the two things. In my opinion, the main difference is intent. If both overconsuming and collecting mean acquiring lots of stuff, we've got to look at the why in order to find the difference. I'm gonna lay this out very bluntly in order to get my point across easily. When you collect things purposefully, you care about those things. When you overconsume, you probably don't really care about those things. And when you buy things you don't care about, those things usually end up going in the trash. That is the most blunt way I can put it. Nobody collects things they don't care about, right? Because why would you put time and effort and money into carefully curating a collection of things you don't even care about? The reason people collect things is because of a passion or an interest. A collection is special. That's why it is more socially acceptable to gain a large amount of items as a collector, because you have a genuine interest. Therefore, it's assumed that because of that interest and passion and care for your collection, you will care for those items and keep those items in your possession for longer. Let's take a look at possibly the most popular example of a really purposeful, curated collection on social media. This creator, Lakenzo, who collects crayons. But not just any crayons, specifically dandelion yellow crayons, which is a very specific shade of yellow. Across the years, Crayola have released a whole bunch of different yellow shades. However, the dandelion yellow crayon was this creator's favorite crayon as a kid, so when she heard that the color was being officially retired in 2017, she started collecting as many as she could, along with all the other dandelion merchandise she could find. Her content was actually so popular that Crayola brought the dandelion crayon back, at first as part of a limited edition release, and then permanently. How cool is that? So I think this is a really good example of a specific, purposeful, curated collection that has meaning to the collector. There is one theme, and boy does she stick to it. She's not branching out into other colors or other brands of yellow crayon, as far as I know. And sure, she's collecting more than just crayons, but there's still a theme, and she obviously loves and cherishes every single one of these items. Because of how nuanced the collection versus overconsumption debate is, and how easily one can blur into the other, I think at this point it is important to mention that in most cases it's really hard to definitively label somebody else's habits. If the difference between collection and overconsumption is a specific type of intent, how can we judge that intent unless we are literally reading somebody's mind? Somebody's carefully curated collection might look like overconsumption to you, but if it's being grown gradually and the items are being genuinely treasured by that person, then do we really have any right to tell them that it's not a collection? Unless you think you can judge their intent better than they can. However, that's not to say that somebody's collection can easily turn into overconsumption without them realizing. And that's the bit that, as an outsider, we might be able to spot before they do, because I feel like it's hard to spot your own habits sometimes. So, to discuss this, here's an example of a video where I think it is hard to tell whether this collection is going to stay a genuine collection, or whether this person just enjoys buying things and it's going to eventually perhaps become a little bit of overconsumption. I'm gonna speed this video up because it's quite long.
I've laid them all out and I'm gonna go one by one. It's a very extensive collection. I like my pride and joy, okay? Starting off, one of my favorites is my strawberry shortcake mug. I love her. She's one of my favorites of all time. I'm pretty sure I got her from TJ Maxx. I just got this mug yesterday, 2 days ago, and it is my current favorite. She's the best mom. Next is my egg mug. I'm obsessed. I also got this at World Market. Next, I got this pancake mug, and I got it as a Christmas present from one of our good friends. This little strawberry mug. I don't remember where I got this. Maybe Urban Outfitters. Okay, next, of course, because I am a book girly, you know I have multiple, but this is one of my book vase mugs. Next, I have these vintage cups I thrifted, and these are also some of my favorites. These were thrifted from, I want to say I found them at Goodwill. Okay, next mug I got was this one, and I think this one was Target, and it was like $4. I'm obsessed with her. Very cute and whimsical, and I'm all about that. Okay, next is my rose tulip inspired cups. I also just bought these at World Market, so I left that day with like 6 mugs. Next is my little she's so cute. Next is my little gingerbread ballerina bow-wearing queen. She was my favorite, one of my favorites for the Christmas season because I mean, literally look at her. Okay, next is my little ghost who's reading a book because I am a book girly. This was my favorite Halloween mug, and the book says spooky stories. So next, shocker, it's another strawberry mug. But this literally has strawberry shortcake on it. Next is hand-painted ceramic mug that I brought back from London. Actually, I thrifted this for like $1. Also was my little frosted gingerbread house. Yeah, was perfect Christmas mug. Next, book mug. I love this one. I think this is my second favorite book mug. My sister got me this for Christmas. Okay, a recent buy, anything pink and red. Those are like one of my favorite color combos. I got this one from TJ Maxx, and I just thought the bears were so cute. I think I got this at a bookstore in Knoxville, Tennessee. Also a Christmas mug, and I got this one from Target, and it's my little like gingerbread. Next is my little Paris croissant mug. I thought she was so cute. I got to live in Paris in October for a month, and I'm going back in 2 weeks, and I love Paris. I'm obsessed. So when I came back, I got this mug because it just reminded me of how much I love Paris. This last one is, of course, a little book mug, and this was a gift. A couple friends gave it to me, and they were like, we thought of you, so we had to get it, and they ordered it. I'm not sure from where, but super cute.
So, as I said, it's not really up to us to pass judgment on this person's intent, but it is interesting to use videos like this in the collection versus overconsumption debate. And I'm about to insanely overanalyze this video, I am well aware of that. But as I said, it's a good little case study to get us thinking. So she has a collection of mugs. She says she has 25, and she does describe it as an extensive collection, which shows that she appreciates that she does have a lot of them. There doesn't seem to be a super specific theme here, apart from they're quite like cute, whimsical. A lot of them are quite big and bulky, and we've got some fruit, food, and book themes going on as well. It is a very cute collection, but I think there's a mix here of mugs that she's collected from places that she's visited, which is awesome, and then there's some mugs which she said that she's just bought from like Target, Urban Outfitters, World Market, which at least in my eyes is less meaningful than the souvenir mugs bought from trips or thrifted or given to you as a gift. So I think if I was in this creator's position, which I kind of have been in the past, I would probably find that it becomes very easy to just buy any old cute mug every time that I see one in the store. If the collection isn't super specific, and if she's open to adding to the collection quite freely instead of just collecting things like souvenirs with meaning and memories attached, I could see this collection growing out of control quite rapidly. Of course, I'm not her. I'm not here to predict her future shopping habits and condemn her for that, but I think this is perhaps a great example of a collection that isn't currently overconsumption, but I think it could easily turn into overconsumption if you aren't careful enough or specific enough with what you're collecting. Again, I'm not trying to like condemn her for something that she hasn't even done yet, but I've been in a position like this myself, and I know a lot of people also have, where you start collecting things just because you like the look of them or you think they're cute, and when you don't have a really specific kind of like set of rules or what's the word, specifications, I guess, for the items that you're collecting, it can very easily turn into just buying things that you think are cute just because you're doing it in the name of collecting. On a slightly different note, I think that a lot of people can end up using the word collection and collecting a little bit incorrectly, as well as using the word overconsuming incorrectly. For example, you'll see people going out and buying like a bunch of makeup, just buying loads of makeup all the time, doing Sephora hauls every time there's a sale on, and they'll say, oh, it's fine because I basically collect makeup at this point anyway. No, honey, you're not collecting, you're just buying stuff. And you're calling it collecting because it makes you feel less guilty about it. If you're just buying random makeup every time it's on sale or buying backups of Bodycare products you don't even need, that is not collecting. At least in my eyes. It is not careful, it is not purposeful, it's not curated. You're just buying loads of stuff. Most likely because you lack the self-control to stop yourself from buying new makeup or perfumes or whatever every time there's a sale on. It's okay, I've been there. And if you're buying so much stuff, like makeup for example, you are probably buying far beyond the normal rate of consumption. As in, your makeup is expiring before you get a chance to finish it all, or you're going out and buying like 10 new lip products even though you already have 10 at home, barely used. We are now heading more towards overconsumption rather than collecting. We are getting more of a forest fire kind of vibe rather than our nice chill candles. Here's an example of a collection that we actually reviewed last week over on YouTube Shorts.
Hi, I'm Lainey, also known as the Overconsumption Girl, and today we're going to be showing you every single product that I have. So this is my Bodycare closet.
To be fair, she isn't even trying to label it as a collection. She just says, hey, I'm the Overconsumption Girl. I think overconsuming is really cute. Are those all body sprays?
6 body sprays right here. We got all the Doves. We have all of these Needohs. We have hand soaps in here too. We got all of the Dove bar soaps. We have all of these perfumes right here.
I'm guessing that most of us watching this video here today can kind of see that this is a little bit insane, but I'm sure to plenty of people out there, collections like this are actually desirable. Here's another one. We seem to be seeing a lot of these like body care collections being really popular on social media these days. And this, I feel, goes beyond collecting. I kind of doubt that there is any careful consideration going on here. Again, like I said, it's not really my place to decide that for sure, but that's kind of my feelings on it. My overconsumption senses are going off pretty majorly right now, and I have pretty good overconsumption senses. I think what we've got going on here is we're kind of stockpiling. We're kind of just buying multiples of lots of different things, and I think as well it makes it more overconsumption-y depending on the purpose of the items being collected. For example, things like anime figures, plushies, ornaments. The purpose of those items is to be visually pleasing and also sometimes used as toys, I guess. So I guess if you're collecting things like figures and you have like 100 and they're all sat on a shelf and you look at them every day and they all bring you joy, that collection and those physical items have fulfilled their purpose. But when we collect things like makeup and body care items, these things aren't created to be looked at or kept on a display shelf. They are created to be used. All of these bottles and containers have a product inside that serves a purpose. So in my opinion, and again it's just my opinion, we should be using things for their actual purposes. Buying a load of body care products to leave them sitting on a shelf gathering dust, to me, is a little bit like buying an entire collection of books to maybe read like one page from each book every once in a while. Like how you would only use each of these products every once in a while. You're not finishing or fully appreciating any of those books. You just like having them on the shelf, almost like a little consumerism trophy. That's kind of how this feels to me. Having items that are supposed to be being used as part of your everyday routine sat on a shelf like trophies. And some of you might be thinking, okay, well, maybe she just likes having options. You can have options in moderation, that's fine. But why does anybody need 50 different tree hut body scrub options? The way that I see it, if you like something enough, you will want to use it regularly. When you have this much stuff, nothing is getting used regularly, so why are we buying it? Like, did we buy it just to look at it? Because I feel like that's what's happening here. When we compare this to Lakenzo's dandelion crayon collection, you can see the real difference between a curated collection and a non-curated collection. It's a small difference, don't get me wrong, because as we've discussed, both of these things involve owning a lot of physical items. But one of these is purposeful and specific, with a big focus on the individual items in the collection. The other is a very general, broad body care collection, with a focus on having lots of things and a focus on the size of the collection rather than the importance of all of the individual items on these shelves.
Overconsumption is bad. I know, hot take of the century, but also I'm taking away that word from you guys because you guys don't know what it means. I saw someone say that buying and collecting physical media is overconsumption. No, that's just called owning the things you enjoy.
I think people love to put collecting and overconsuming in two completely separate boxes, but the two things are just too closely linked for us to just disregard that. I mean, yeah, owning things that you enjoy isn't overconsumption. This creator is correct. However, you can't ignore how easy it is for that to turn into overconsumption. You have to be aware of that. Otherwise, it will probably happen. So yes, I do agree that using the word overconsumption when things aren't necessarily overconsumption is incorrect and kind of annoying, but I do think that completely disregarding the topic and the possibility of things like collecting becoming overconsumption is just as dangerous. Let's go back and talk a little bit more about why collecting is okay, but overconsuming isn't okay. Especially when the biggest difference between the two things is intent. So the biggest issue with overconsumption is the harm to the environment. So many people say to me, why are you so bothered about what other people do with their money? Let me spell it out for you, okay? Overconsuming hurts the planet. You cannot argue against that because it is a fact. If you try to argue against a fact, you look silly. So let's all start doing a little bit of research before we start speaking. A little bit of research goes a long way. You don't even have to trust what I say. You can just Google it. Although I'm starting to feel like they're not teaching kids how to Google stuff these days because nobody seems to know how to gather basic information online anymore. When people overconsume, they produce more physical waste than the average person. They are also more likely to throw away their unused excess products or products that they bought and then decided that they didn't really want, which creates even more waste. Creating waste contributes to landfills, and landfills are harmful to the environment and the planet. I was under the impression that the concept of waste being bad for the planet was a common thing taught in schools, but every day I am proved wrong. So I guess that's why collecting is seen as more socially acceptable than overconsuming, because hopefully with a collection there won't be much waste. Ideally, you're collecting things that you will keep and treasure and look after for a very long time, and maybe even pass down to future generations. This is why collecting is okay. It's purposeful, it's careful, and it's done with specific intentions. And you're hopefully planning on keeping this stuff because it's specific and special to you. It is not doing shopping hauls full of micro trends like Needohs or buying 10 Labubus in one go because they're super viral. Where are your Labubus now? Everyone who was buying Labubus last year, opening blind boxes and collecting them all, how are those collections coming along? Are we still collecting? Are those Labubus still swinging off your bag every day? Or are we over it? Have they been shoved in a box somewhere or given away to siblings or cousins? Were we ever really collecting in the first place, or was it just a micro trend? That is what you have to be mindful of. Going back to my candle versus forest fire metaphor, lighting a single candle or a couple of candles represents regular consumption. It's chill, it's normal. And then on the other hand, we've got a forest fire, which is overconsumption. It is big, it is crazy, and it's out of control. Once it starts, it's really tough to stop. So where does collecting fit into this? I would say collecting is kind of like this. One of those candle-lit concerts. And there's a lot of candles here, right? There's a lot more than our just 1 or 2 candles. It's a lot of candles, but it's not out of control. And it's got a purpose. Each one of these candles adds to the scene. They're there for a reason. You would have to put effort into doing this. You would have to light them all carefully and set them up one by one, the same way that you would acquire items carefully and slowly in a collection. As we've said, it's all about the intent. It's all about the plan. However, if you got careless and you knocked over one of these candles, then we might have a problem on our hands. And this, I guess, could easily turn into this. We've gone from controlled and organized to destructive and out of control. Similarly to how if you get a little bit careless with collecting, it can get out of control and turn into overconsuming. This is the progression of being a consumer, or at least how I see it. Most people do a lot of this. Some people decide that they want to do a little bit of this, but for some people, they go even further and they end up with the forest fire. So, what can we do about this? How can we make sure our collections don't turn into overconsumption? How do we make sure our nice little candlelit concert doesn't turn into burning the whole place down? Here is my advice based on my own personal experience. I think a good way to make sure your collecting doesn't become overconsuming is by narrowing down exactly what you are collecting. Get picky, basically. For example, in 2020, I started collecting cute plushies. That was it. That was the criteria. Cute plushies. And I was collecting them simply because I could. It was gradual at first, but after about 12 months of buying a couple of new plushies every month, I had a whole load of them. And then they started taking up so much space in my room, and eventually I was like, why did I do this? I don't really care about half of these plushies anyway. They weren't special or anything that I really wanted. I just bought them because I liked the look of them and because I could. And I had the means to, so I did. I could have prevented this by being far more picky with the plushies that I was collecting. I could have been far more deliberate and purposeful. For example, I could have chosen to only collect cinema roll plushies, or I don't know, like the Bartholomew Bear Jellycats. This would have made it harder for me to find things that fit my collection criteria and would have stopped me from just buying random plushies. And I mean, you can still get really specific and still have lots of potential items to collect. For example, Jellycats, if anybody hasn't come across the Jellycat craze yet. Jellycats are a brand of plushie. They bring out new ones all the time for different seasons and different themes, and they are really quite expensive. But I could say, okay, I'm just gonna collect food-themed Jellycats. There's about 5 billion food-themed Jellycats, but at least we're being specific and we're being a little bit more purposeful rather than just saying, I'm just collecting Jellycats, or I'm just collecting plushies. Alongside that, I think the key to collecting is having a plan. And I don't just mean a plan of what you're going to collect, I mean a plan of how often you're going to add to your collection, a plan of how much money you're going to spend on your collection, what's your budget, what is your storage plan for all of these items, where are you going to keep everything that you collect. And I would recommend also having an exit strategy. And by that I mean, what are you going to do with all of these items when you no longer want them, if the time comes? Are you gonna sell everything? Can you be bothered to go through the process of selling everything? Because I feel like when a lot of people come round to actually selling their stuff, it's a lot more effort than they think. Are you gonna give these things away to someone, to family or friends? Is anyone gonna want this stuff? Is it the sort of stuff that could go to charity? And I know you might be thinking, okay, well, I'm collecting things that I'm gonna want to keep forever. Like forever? What about in like 10 years time when you might have completely different hobbies and interests? What about in 20 years time when you might be in a completely different living situation with a lot less storage space than you have now? What is your plan for those situations? I came across this TikTok which was quite interesting. It's somebody's entire magnet collection that they have given away. This is an absolutely huge collection. I'll play the video.
This is the most insane Facebook Marketplace find I've ever had in my entire life. Yesterday I acquired someone's 60-year-long magnet collection. I think there's probably 1,000 magnets. This woman in her 80s got rid of her entire magnet collection that she's been collecting since the 60s. Absolutely insane. Look at all these little cute animals. Look at this. All magnets.
I feel like you see so much content about building collections, but you never see videos about ending collections. So this was really interesting to see, and also a good reminder that at the end of the day, we will grow old and eventually pass on from this world, but our belongings will not. And even those carefully curated collections, although this magnet collection doesn't seem to be very specific or curated to me, all of those things will end up needing to be passed on to the next person via charity shop or Facebook Marketplace. But I think when people gain possessions, even in the context of a collection, they are usually only thinking about the now. I think that specifically was something that really helped me kick my over-collecting habits. Over-collecting. I've just created a new word there. When collecting starts to become over-consuming. Something that really helped me kick the over-collecting habit was the realization that in a few years' time, I could end up moving across the world to live with my boyfriend in California. So what am I gonna do with all my stuff then? All of these plushies and Funko Pops and figures and seasonal blankets that I have a habit of buying far too many of, they're either gonna end up getting packed into a suitcase and flown across the world, or I'm gonna have to let them go. And that made me realize that when I was buying all of these things, I wasn't considering that I was now the owner of these items indefinitely. And it is now my responsibility to do my best to ensure that these items don't just head straight for the local landfill when I no longer want them. And I'm not saying that you need to live only thinking about the future. It's important to do things that make you happy now rather than living for the future, which is always uncertain. But you gotta keep in mind that the future will come eventually. So what are your options for when it does? That was my personal realization and reasoning, I suppose, as to why I stopped being so impulsive with my buying, thinking about what is future me gonna do with all of this stuff. To be completely honest, I guess I was just thinking like the classic, I'll just sell it all when I don't want it anymore. I'll just make some of my money back. Yeah, well, breaking news, future Rachel can't be bothered to sell each individual item you bought on a whim because you thought it was cute. And nobody wants to buy your random plushies and keychains and K-pop albums anyway. So more often than not, the selling thing is everybody's plan, but it's far easier said than done. I think another thing that you have to consider as well is, when are you gonna be satisfied? When will the collection be done? Have you got a set amount of things that you're collecting, or are you just gonna keep collecting forever? It's like with the Jellycats, like, okay, sure, collect food-themed Jellycats if that's what makes you happy. But if Jellycat keep releasing a bunch of new food-themed plushies every single year, are you just gonna keep going forever? My point here is that it really does help to be picky and look at having some restrictions for your collecting, especially if you're collecting things that are big and bulky and take up a lot of storage space, or things that expire or go off over time like makeup or perfume. A couple of weeks ago I posted a video all about Needohs, which is the current social media trending thing to buy, and in that video we touched on collecting versus overconsumption. I asked you guys to let me know your thoughts in the comments of that video about collecting versus overconsumption so that I could use some of those comments to help my discussion in this video. So let's quickly have a look at some of those comments and see what you guys were saying. So this commenter said, I collect piggy banks. I have 60 plus now, but it's a collection that's grown over 2 decades. I usually try to get one every time I go on a trip and will occasionally get one I see at home if I really like it. Everyone to me has a memory attached, whether it's where I got it from or who gave it to me. I don't use them all, but the most I've ever bought within the same week was like 3. This to me feels like the same as the mug video that we watched today. I feel like if you've got something like piggy banks that you really enjoy and you know that you really want to keep a collection of, as long as you can keep a good grip on your collecting habits, fine, that's perfect. Also, piggy banks is a really cute thing to collect. Oh my gosh, I love that. As a collector, the 2 biggest differences between collecting and overconsumption is time and selection. I collect Monster High dolls. I have for about a year or 2 now. Most of them I've gotten as gifts, secondhand or on sale. With collecting, your collection grows larger with time. You don't buy 20 dolls at once. Watching your collection grow gradually over time is, in my opinion, one of the best parts about collecting. On the other hand, for example, in the Needoh video that I posted a few weeks ago, we saw these collectors realizing that Needohs were the big thing, going out and buying a bunch of Needohs, buying like 30 or 40 at a time and calling it a Needoh collection. It's not a Needoh collection, you just did a big shopping haul. If you'd have collected maybe like 40 Needohs over time, like over a span of multiple years, and you had carefully selected each Needoh, then yeah, that would be more of a collection. But just going to Target and grabbing a bunch of Needohs off the shelves isn't really a collection. It's a shopping haul. For me, collecting is buying something that you truly love and care about, even if it's not popular or well known. Overconsumption is buying something because it's suddenly popular on social media and drop it as soon as something else is popular. Yes, as we were talking about, I think the micro trends, like the social media viral products, is a big contributor to overconsuming. I think the only thing that I would add to this is that you can overconsume on things that aren't trending items as well. For example, things like, you know, the Bodycare collections that we saw today. The majority of these Bodycare items are not and have never been trending items, but they are still kind of like bulk buying and excessively purchasing them. So yes, while it is often micro trends and internet trends that cause overconsumption, it is not just limited to that. Oh, and then someone replied to that comment, spot on, collections should be the things that you treasure and want to keep for a long time, not a quick fad that you'll toss into a charity shop or landfill within 6 months. And even if your interest in the thing that you were collecting fades, there should still be a level of long-term emotional investment that went into it. That last sentence is really, really good. And I 100% agree that if you are collecting something that you have a true passion in, you should have enough of a passion in that thing that eventually when the passion perhaps dies down a little bit, you will still love those items enough to want to keep them. I think the idea of having like a long-term emotional investment in your collection is a really, really good thing to keep in mind. Within this same conversation thread, somebody said, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. You can collect things that you truly love and care about, and it can still be overconsumption. Ooh, that's an interesting one. I do agree with this. I guess what you have to be aware of is that you don't let your love and passion for something go overboard. I'm not gonna lie, this one kind of had me stumped in the moment because we're now trying to consider the intent, the process, and the emotions behind collecting. But I'm currently editing this video and I have some additional thoughts. I think I had previously thought that if you truly have a passion for something, then that makes it collecting. But this comment is correct in that you can have a genuine love and passion for something, but still overconsume, because your method of collecting can still be excessive and out of control. In fact, I think having a real love for something can make it easier to lose that control. So really, it's the method and the process of collecting that's important here. No matter how much love love you have for something. This commenter says, Tangled the series is my special interest, and I have a huge collection of dolls, Funkos, figures and books. It's a collection that has been slowly building and a collection that I treasure and love to look at because it brings me joy and comfort. My collection spiraled into unnecessary consumption a couple of years ago when I started buying Tangled related things that I convinced myself I needed just because they were Tangled. The worst offender was a really ugly, bulky plastic door hanger that I kind of hated, but I felt like I needed to keep because it was Tangled. Nowadays, my collection only includes things that I actually like, and I have a very strict rule when it comes to collections. Only buy it if you absolutely love it. Leave it for a while, and if you can't stop thinking about it, then you can buy it. I love this comment. It's a really great example of the problems that you can come across when you start collecting. You can start collecting with great intentions. You know, you have a specific thing that you want to collect, but again, it's a case of like needing to get even more specific with that to stop it from spiraling out of control. Because there's a lot of Tangled stuff out there. There's a lot of everything out there. Unless you get really, really specific with your collections, or unless you have like incredible self-control so that you only buy items that you really, 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 really love, it is so easy for collecting to become overconsumption, or as this commenter said, unnecessary consumption. I feel like collecting versus consuming is a huge issue in the K-pop community. I hope we touch on that as well. Oops, I kind of didn't. Sorry. So many people have massive collections of thousands of albums and photo cards, but there's no way they can enjoy every single thing that they have. At what point does it stop being a collection and instead a completion challenge? In my opinion, when they feel the need to buy something, even when they don't love it, so they can complete their collection, which isn't even a collection at that point because there is no more curation. Yes, I feel like K-pop and K-pop albums is a really interesting one to get into. And honestly, the topic of K-pop is so big that I was like, I'm not even going to touch on it in this video. As a K-pop fan myself, I did start buying K-pop albums at one point. Like a lot of K-pop fans, I bought them kind of purely because I wanted the little photo cards. I bought two K-pop albums, and after that, I was just like, what am I doing? Like, why am I buying these CDs? Like, that's what they are. They're CDs. I don't listen to CDs. I don't even own anything that can play a CD. So I feel like maybe the whole K-pop thing will be something that I perhaps do like an entire separate video on, because yeah, overconsumption, consumerism in the K-pop industry is crazy. And I definitely felt the effects of that one a little bit myself when I got into K-pop for the first time. And K-pop albums are one of those where every single album has about like 5 million different variations, and people will collect multiple of the same variations to try and get the different photo cards. Yeah, it's a lot, really. This was only a handful of comments. I actually really enjoyed reading your guys' comments on video. Maybe I should do that more often. It was really fun to see what you guys were saying, so thank you so much for sharing those comments with me. I think it is super important to look at different perspectives and opinions when it comes to the topics we discuss here on my channel, especially topics like collecting and overconsuming, where the line between the two is so fine. Everybody has their own opinions on these topics, often rooted in their own experiences, so it's great to be able to take a look at those and use them to help shape your own opinions. As always, you guys, I am not here to tell you what to think. I'm just here to help deliver those different opinions to you so that you can make up your own mind and develop your own opinions on these topics. I just want people to keep thinking, keep learning, and of course, be mindful that their collecting can easily turn into overconsumption. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe if you enjoyed today's video. I post a new YouTube short every single day, and I also post a new long form video every single Saturday. If you're on mobile, don't forget to hit the hype button. You know the drill. As always, leave me any of your comments, any of your thoughts down below. I love reading them all, so let me know what you think, and I will see you guys in next week's video. Bye!